Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and before we start today's show, I wanted to talk to all the guitar players out there about something really interesting. If you're a guitar player, or probably any other kind of musician, or if you know a musician who's looking to make some more money without having to tour or go on the road, or put up with any of the other BS that musicians normally have to deal with, then what I'm about to tell you is probably the most exciting and important message you'll ever hear. As a business guy who just happens to play guitar, one of the first things I realized after interviewing, say, the first 50 or so guitar players was that if I was going to get into this business today, the first thing I'd look at doing is learning how to license your music. And by licensing music, I mean getting your music inserted into movies, television shows, and commercials. And here's why. There are 4 reasons, actually. First of all, focusing on record deals, publishing, and touring means that you're putting your destiny in someone else's hands. You're at the whim of someone who has literally thousands of other people competing for their attention, many of whom, frankly, may have music with more commercial appeal than your music has, which means you get what's ever left over as far as attention from that particular manager, publisher, publicist, or booking agent, right? And I don't know how you feel, but for me, I'm totally uncomfortable leaving my destiny and my family's financial future up to someone else. Second, I've learned in business that if you work in areas that are less competitive and not as crowded, your likelihood of success goes up dramatically. And there are way less people competing to have their music licensed than there are trying to make records, get their songs published, and go on tour. In fact, there are so many people competing to play music, the average working musician today, by and large, earns the same or less money than they were making back in the 1970s and 1980s. Third, in the licensing business, it's not unusual to have one or more of your songs wind up paying you multiple times over and over again. In some cases, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. In fact, some songs you even get paid on multiple times over from a variety of sources because different people wind up licensing that same song from you. Many times you get paid for songs you recorded months or even years ago. So no work you do is ever wasted. Even if a particular song doesn't get picked up right now, there's a very good chance it can get picked up later. And the more music you write, the more opportunities you get for placements. The more placements, the more money you make, both up front as income from licensing fees and on the backside in terms of royalties for years to come. And the fourth reason I like this industry is that a free ebook has just been published, which pretty much takes you by the hand and shows you step by step how to get your music licensed. The book is less than 20 pages long, and it was written by Mike Elsner, who I interviewed in episode number 167 of this show. Mike's been doing this for over 14 years, and he's actually had over 2,000 songs licensed at this point in time. Now, I want you to pay attention to something because that means he's getting paid to license almost 150 songs per year. Now, keep in mind, most successful career musicians don't even get paid for 150 songs in total over a 30 or 40-year career, yet Mike's getting paid for this on an annual basis. And in this free ebook, you'll discover the 4 simple steps to licensing success, including step 1, which actually shows you how to get paid a significant upfront licensing fee as well as quarterly royalties. You'll learn how to get paid for learning how to play a new instrument. And I'm not kidding. He actually shows you an example of he basically practiced a new instrument and he licensed all the songs, and he walks you through this. In step 2, you'll learn how to quickly expand your song catalog by 5 to 6 times its current size without having to create literally anything new. That's right, you'll learn how to easily turn 10 songs into 50 to 60 songs in less than 5 minutes each. And each one of those new songs now becomes another new asset you can sell. You'll learn what to do, and maybe even more important, what not to do to get your music quickly noticed by music supervisors. And this one simple nugget alone easily makes the difference between regularly getting your music licensed and never getting it licensed at all. He'll show you 4 ways to get paid to license your music, and then you get to pick and choose which one of those 4 ways works best for you. And you'll also get to uncover little-known secrets to using common websites online to get free names of people who would want to license your music. And the other cool thing I like about this business is that you can run it all from your home studio. No ivory tower record label executives telling you what to play and how to play it, and no shady managers or backroom publishers with their own agenda telling you what to do. So download Mike's free ebook on music licensing right now. Just go to everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. That's it, real simple. Let me know how you like the book, and now let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. We've got an outstanding, a great guitar player. We're here with Steve Jewell. Steve's one of the 2 guitar players in the band OTIS, and before anything else, I'd tell you to go back and listen to episode number 140, where I had Steve's guitar partner and the other OTIS guitarist and lead singer Boone Froggatt on the show, and that'll give you a complete picture of the band and Steve and Boone working together as a unit. These guys are tight as hell. They've got a massive tour coming up of Europe. Steve's born and raised in South Central Kentucky. He was constantly around music because his dad is a musician, and between his dad and mom, he grew up listening to tons of music all the time, and he was initially a drum player, which every single major guitar player I've spoken to said that is the most important thing. If you got a guitarist who knows how to play the drums, because I interviewed Jeff Beck's 2 of Jeff Beck's guitar players, and they both said Jeff's like, just get the drums together and you got the whole band. So good for you, man.
Right.
He studied music in school, and after high school, he went on to college to study classical guitar for a semester, but he dropped out because he realized he wasn't being fulfilled, and he hit the road full time. He spent a lot of time playing for artists out of Nashville. Wasn't satisfied. He had this drive inside. He wanted to be in a band, and he wanted to have his own voice. He knew Boone and John Seeley, who's the bassist, wound up being the bassist for OTIS, through their local music scene. And as luck would have it, Boone, John, Andrew, and Steve all found themselves together in the band named OTIS. If you haven't heard OTIS, go check out their new album. It's really, if you like blues, if you like 1970s, Grand Funk, Paul Kossoff, that style music, you'll love OTIS. It's not the same thing. It's not recycled Grand Funk and recycled Paul Kossoff, but it's in that vein of 70s production. And was Paul was involved with you guys, Paul Nelson, right?
Yeah, our buddy Paul Nelson. We had him in on the album. He came in and was a guest guitarist on a song, and he also was executive producer on it. So very blessed to have Brother Paul in on the mix, that's for sure.
Yeah, so this is put together. These guys are great players in production, and it was great on it. You got some great people working there with you, man. So thanks for your time, man. It's been a long time since we first connected. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, man, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So how long have you guys been together as OTIS, as a unit?
We've been together, man, for about 6 years now. We all grew up, all 4 of us, growing up around the same area in South Central Kentucky, and all been friends over the years. Our families kind of know each other, so it's kind of a small community, kind of where we're from, a small neighboring town. So if anybody plays music, everybody knows about it, especially if you're a fellow musician yourself. So we've been together about 6 years, man, and hopefully we can go for about 60 years more.
Yeah, well, you guys are super tight. I mean, 6 years of playing all the time, you can tell, because when you guys play, you're a unit. There's no mess. You could tell you guys know each other's moves, and grooves real well.
Absolutely. One thing that, I guess we kind of take pride on, discipline ourselves when we were first kind of starting out, us 4 together in OTIS. You don't really see a whole lot of bands anymore, upcoming bands or what have you, that really understands what artist development is and has the know and the discipline of what actually goes into artist development. And what we did, our own type of artist development was we would get together and practice, sometimes maybe 3 or 4 days a week. And, a lot of Saturdays and on the weekends we'd get together and start, maybe like 10 o'clock in the morning and go all the way to midnight. And, what we would do is, we'd start out, playing for a couple hours, jamming. Then, we'd listen to music for a couple hours and then maybe break and go get some Mexican food and come back and jam a little bit more, listen a little bit more. But, one thing that I think is very, very important for musicians, it doesn't matter if you're starting out or, if you're very established and got years of experience playing, the number one, thing that I think that's very important for all musicians is to listen to music. And, we always make sure that we put that, into our practice time, in the beginning and still to this day, listening to music. A lot of times we may show up to practice, even now, and, 9 times out of 10 what happens is when we show up, we put on a record. We may put on a Ray Charles record, or Dave Brubeck, or Al Green, or just anything, or Grand Funk Railroad, and sit down and kind of get our minds right and listen to music, for a couple minutes, and then we go practice. But I heard somebody say once, and I always kind of go back and quote this, that, excuse me, if somebody, like well-seasoned professional musicians, somebody said, like if I was to sit down and practice, let's say for, an hour a day, I would spend 70% of that time listening to music and only actually 30% of that time actually playing. So, it's very important to listen to music. And if you think about it, why did all of us get into playing music in the first place? It's because of something we heard. So it's good to stay inspired. If you're listening to music and you're constantly staying inspired, then you'll constantly want to play, and that can constantly improve your craft. So that's the way, I look at it.
Thanks for sharing that. I think I interviewed Paul. I don't know if you heard that interview, but he spent his album is phenomenal, and I asked him about how he put it together, and he said, I went back and I studied all the greatest albums of the 70s, and I wanted to find out what they had in common and what was unique about them. And this is a guy, he's, I don't know how old Paul is. He's probably close to him. I'm 54, so he's around my age for sure. Maybe, plus or minus 5 to 7 years younger. And this is a guy who's been involved in music his whole life, went to Berkeley, yet he went back and still studied all this stuff to put it together. And he said the same thing. So I think, I think that's a wise point. It's hard to do that because you always feel like, man, I got to have neck time. That's what makes me better. But
right.
You're right. Listening is equally as important, if not more important than neck time.
Absolutely. And knowing how to listen to music, that's the other thing. A lot of people, they may, listen to music, but as a musician, to truly know how to sit down and listen to music and dissect everything, how to maybe channel one instrument, if you're listening to a record, how to channel the drums, how to channel the bass player, the horns, or the vocal melody, or what have you. That's something I think that's very essential and important as well, and that we've, trained ourselves to be able to do. Because, anymore, 9 times out of 10, if I put on a record or if I hear something come on the radio or whatnot, first thing I'm doing is I'm locking in, channeling the drums and the bass. Because if you don't have a groove, then you don't have nothing. Just noise. So, and that's my favorite thing, is listening to drums and bass and horn players.
Very cool, man. How did you go from drums? You started playing drums, and how'd you switch over to guitar?
Yeah, man. I started playing when I was 5 years old in a local church that I grew up going to, and I started on drums. My dad was playing guitar at church, and I love playing drums. And gosh, that was like my first ever midlife crisis, trying to between drums and guitar, man. When I got about around 11 years old, I was just getting eat up with music, constantly wanting to play all the time. And I was like, man, I can't beat on drums at 11 o'clock at night because, people are trying to sleep. So, I remember begging my dad. I was like, dude, just show me some chords. Show me, a couple chords on the guitar because, I was like, I can sit in my room and kind of strum some chords and, at 11 o'clock or midnight, and I won't bother anybody sleeping, if it's on electric guitar unplugged or acoustic or something. And, he was finally gave in, show me some chords. It's like, here, okay, here's some records. Go listen to some music. You got some chords, so, go figure it out.
That's really
cool.
Go
woodshed. Go put some time in, so. So, yeah, I started drums when I was 5 and migrated over to guitar, I guess, when I was about around 11 years old. And I just completely became consumed by guitar playing and everything that entailed with guitar. And, I remember coming to a point where I thought I'd have to pick or choose because, one, for my identity as a musician, how are they going to identify me as a guitarist or as a drummer? And it just seems like it would be kind of too hard to try to perfect more than one instrument and, really get identified as that. And I just said, screw it, man, let's go guitar. I'm loving this. So, I still play drums some. I still enjoy playing drums some. I teach children in the afternoons. I give music lessons, and I enjoy giving drum lessons sometimes, or bass guitar lessons, or a little bit of piano lessons. So, I enjoy playing multiple instruments, but something about a guitar that, that's very attractive and appealing to me. I heard somebody say in an interview, essentially what I think any guitarist should aim or strive to do is, kind of get as close to the human voice as you can, with the guitar. And that's why I've always been so attracted to like soul music and blues artists, the way they play, especially, slide guitar or guitar playing of people like B.B. King and whatnot. They really try to mimic, it seems like, the human voice and touch on emotions and that feel element. So that's kind of what I've always been turned on to, and I really enjoy that stuff.
Was your dad a full-time musician, or he just played on the side?
I just played on the side on the weekends. He worked at a 9-to-5 job and played on the weekends. And I remember, being a kid, he would play at a couple local jamborees and stuff. And every now and then, my mom, she would take me to watch Dad playing stuff. And I remember just being locked in the whole entire time, watching the drummer and watching the band and just being, mesmerized what was going on, and just loved it, man. I just been around music my whole life and being bit by the music bug, I guess you could say. I don't know if it's a Southern culture thing. I don't really think so, because I've seen this, I guess, all across the whole world. But it seems like you can always find a common interest and a strong tie to musicians being influenced by family members. I think that's a big thing that always helps out, because all of us in OTIS, our family members played and kind of passed it down to us, and there's other musicians, same story. So that's always a common thing. It seems like you find within musicians is that being influenced by family members and growing up with family members that played or close friends kind of pass that down to them. So and that's always a special thing.
Yeah, very cool. Did any of you guys' dads play with each other?
They have. I know our bass player, John, some of his family has played with some of Boone's family. I don't think our parents or family members or anything has necessarily been in a band together, but again, being in South Central Kentucky and kind of small neighboring towns, everybody's kind of jammed or played with each other at some point, you know what I mean? So
right.
It's been more or less something kind of on those lines, I guess you'd say.
And while you mention it, man, I got to give a shout out to your parents, because you've been like, you're 26 years old. You've been such a polite. They did a good job with you, man. You've always been a pleasure to deal with. Real polite, real friendly, communicate real well. So shout out to your mom and dad for that, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. How have things changed for you guys musically, do you think? You've been together 6 years and you've played together a lot. What's the, I'm sure there's been tons of growth from, day one till now. What do you see as some of the biggest changes in the band musically?
Definitely our songwriting and, and how we listen to music. You start out, just jamming, having fun, messing around. But, as you grow and the more you listen to music and the more you train your ear, things definitely change. And as the business side of our band, as it's growing, and we're getting, being on a record label now, our whole team and everything behind us, getting exposed to a whole lot more fans. You have more people watching you. So it's like, what kind of message are you trying to say? What are you trying to portray, through your music? And, one thing that's very, 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 the number one thing that's probably important to us, I'd say, is that we always strive to put out some kind of positive and uplifting message in our music. That way it can be conceived for everyone. It doesn't matter, what age you are, what your background is, what genre of music you like. I think anybody can at least appreciate, where we're coming from and what we're doing. So, we always, again, we strive more to put out, a positive message. I think, I heard Boone say, when we get in a room to write now, we're four guys playing for our lives, and, we take writing a whole lot more serious. You want to be influenced, but you don't want to be a carbon copy of anybody. So we really, I think that's one thing we really try to work on is being ourselves, having our own identity, which can be very hard for an upcoming band because there's so much music that's been out, so many different genres, and it is kind of hard wearing your influences on your sleeve in a sense because, you don't want to be a copy of anything, and that's one thing that we've always tried to work extremely hard on is for people to understand and know that, we're a band that wants to stand on our own 2 feet. We want to definitely have our own sound and not try to be some kind of copy out, of anything, and respectively, wear our influences on our sleeve. But, of course, the general public, they're going to pinpoint you to certain artists or bands that, they like or that they think you sound like, which is fine. But, I guess we kind of take pride in that because so far I think we've done a really great job of developing our own sound and standing on our own 2 feet. A lot of press and a lot of reviews we're getting in on our new record. People will say they may come from this school of these artists, from the Southern rock music of the 70s or whatnot, but they definitely have their own unique kind of sound, their own unique thing going on. And that's been very awesome to read that and hear that from, a lot of critics and a lot of fans and people that's getting turned on to our music.
You know what? I give you credit because, we were talking about relationships earlier and you said, well, how did you do this? And, everything you've done, it's very similar because all these things you've done have been deliberate. And I just want to point that out because there's a lot of musicians listening to that. And you guys do have your own identity. But this is, to summarize all the things that you've worked on, your songwriting, forming your own unique musical identity, putting out a positive message and wanting to stand on your own 2 feet with that unique musical identity. There's so many moving parts there. And they're all deliberate. Yep. They're things you've worked on intentionally. This shit just doesn't happen. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, whether it's in music or anything. Like I'm coming from the business side, it's the same thing. Stuff just doesn't happen. And you've gone out of your way to deliberately focus on certain things. And you have to become successful. And that's why you've got a major European tour followed by an American tour coming up. That's why you're on a major label. That's why your record sounds great and unique, So I thanks for sharing that because there's some, really valuable lessons there to people that are listening to this and wanting to be in your position.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, man. One thing that we don't see really a whole lot of people doing, a whole lot of bands doing is we're really going back and listening to the roots of things. And, even from a business perspective, I've always thought that depending on how knowledgeable you are about what line of business that you're in, I think depends on how successful you'll be. And that's kind of an approach we've always took. and always had this love and passion for roots music and studying where all forms of modern music come from, and for what we do and what we like, it stems from blues music and bluegrass and folk music and soul, stuff like that. And when we did our first record, the tribute to John Brim record, who was a Kentucky bluesman that recorded on Chess Records, we wanted to approach that with the mindset of a band, a rock and roll band stepping into Chess Records and making a blues record or interpreting our form of blues. But with that, we done a really great deal of studying, reading different books. We read Robert Palmer's book, The Writer, Deep Blues, listening to a lot of great music. A lot of people, when they think blues, as far as back as some people will go, is Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, people like that. And those are great. But one thing we've always took pride in is really doing our homework on bands and artists. And if you listen closely, Muddy Waters will say, well, I was really influenced by, Sunhouse and Robert Johnson. And then we listen to those guys, and then you kind of get a glimpse, or you kind of read somewhere or hear somewhere who they were influenced by. You keep going back, and you run into people like Lightning Hopkins or Charlie Patton. And one thing, that I take pride in, being from Kentucky, is there was an artist named Sylvester Weaver who was from Louisville, Kentucky, who was the first guitarist ever to record slide guitar. And he recorded it before Robert Johnson did.
That's interesting.
Not a lot of people know that. And he went up to New York, and I think it was in 1924, 23, somewhere around there, and recorded 2 songs. And from my understanding, he used a pocket knife and recorded slide guitar with it. And, that's very cool because, 1, he's from Kentucky, and 2, just, knowing about this guy, knowing his name, knowing his music, and everything, how he done it. He didn't use a brass slide or glass slide. He used a pocket knife. And back in those days, they would just use a lot of different obscure things to play slide with. So, they used a chicken bone or a pocket knife and different stuff like that. And, we make it a point to go back and really kind of study things like that, because I think it's very important, very essential as a songwriter into your career to study your craft, as much as you can. And that's one thing, going back and studying roots music, I think has drastically helped us establish our own identity and our own kind of unique sound, because a lot of people, pinpoint great bands. They'll say the Allman Brothers or Led Zeppelin or the Beatles and stuff like that. And some people, that may be as far back as they take it. And I think if you're not careful, you're kind of more prone to being pinpointed to those groups. But if I had kind of any advice, I guess, for any kind of upcoming band, if you want to do this and you want to take this seriously, excuse me, and you want to be able to have your own unique sound and be able to stand on your 2 feet, go back and study roots music, and that will, drastically, I think, help you to be able to craft your own thing and your own sound. And, I've even sat around with a couple buddies and some friends and, talk about blues and listen to blues, and they're like, oh, yeah, I love Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that stuff's great, man, but, have you heard of Sylvester Weaver? Have you really listened to Sunhouse? Have you really listened to this or listened to that? Or Lightning Hopkins, and there's it's like I can't really kind of maybe fully get into it. And, some of those things, it kind of takes time, listening to. But, but that's one thing I think, though, that's really drastically helped us is studying roots music, and that's really helped us develop our own sound, I think.
Well, dude, this is like a seminar for how to be successful, man. I really appreciate you. This is great. I mean, and the one thing that you said 3 or 4 or 5 times is that I really take pride in X. And,
yeah,
but that you have to, it's in anything you're doing. I mean, again, I coming out of the business side, and I did the same thing in all my. You just can't like fog a mirror and say, "Oh, this shit seems fun. Let me do." You got to spend the hours. I'm sure you came home from your day gig and you spent till 2, 3 in the morning reading these books and listening to these music.
Yeah.
This shit just doesn't happen. There's a ton of moving parts, a ton of work involved, and man, this is like. Thank you, man. This is like a seminar for anybody that is trying to, no matter what level you're at. There's a lot of shit involved behind the scenes. It's not, going to the clubs in the weekend, playing and then getting fucked up. That's not how you get to the level where you're at,
Oh man, yeah. And, I handle a lot of business, the business side of things for our band, kind of oversee all that. And gosh, I could spend hours with you doing an interview, just telling you what I know and, what may help. I'm open book. I don't obviously know everything, but I've always loved Dwayne Allman's quote. He said he was always willing to teach others that wanted to learn from him, and he was always open-minded enough to learn from others that were more wise than him. So, that's the way I always try to be. I try to be open-minded and and all four of us notice we try to be open-minded and be an open book and learn as much as we can from anybody that we can and give any kind of advice that, we may know to help somebody. And I haven't really told anybody this or talked about this a whole lot, but something I've kind of been doing occasionally is just kind of writing things down, typing things out on my computer, kind of about our journey.
That's great.
And, I hope maybe someday that I could eventually get that published into a book and maybe help somebody else. But, there was one book I read. I can't remember the title. It was something like Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business or something like that. And the very first line this guy wrote and was so important. And, I'd probably include this line in my book if I was to ever put anything out, was by the time that you read this book and you start reading this, everything I've mentioned in here is probably going to be outdated. Because the music business is just currently, evolving.
Yeah.
But, I think something that doesn't go outdated is freaking grinding, man. Putting in the hours, working hard, that's very essential, I think, for anybody. It doesn't matter what kind of line of business you're in. You got to get out there and grind. You hear about people that get out there and trying to start their own companies. You hear the theory, going door to door, knocking on doors. Well, that's essentially, what we're doing at the same time. And we've been doing for years, playing every kind of opportunity that we could get starting out just to get our name out there, letting people know who we are, and, talking to anybody that we could that may know more or have more advice than us. And it's been a very big blessing for us to come where we come from here in South Central Kentucky, because we have the band Blackstone Cherry and the Kentucky Headhunters in our corner that, we could pick their brain and talk to them about. And I guess that's kind of one advantage, we've kind of had, maybe more so than some other bands. But
even that, they didn't come to you and say, hey, I mean, I don't know, but I would bet they didn't come around to you and say, hey, let us help you. You probably went into them and said, hey, we'd love to, can we pick your brain? You had to make the first move, and you had to also show them that you're worth them investing their time in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We always say that, of course, Greg, I don't know, man, if there would be an Otis if it wasn't for Greg Martin, in a way, because he had this side band called Rufus Huff, and that's essentially, I think, kind of how all of us met. We were going, to Rufus Huff gigs and hanging out watching Greg. I remember, when when Boone wasn't even old enough. He wasn't 21 to get into the bars. John was 21. He would go in and be watching Rufus Huff while Boone was standing outside the window trying to peek through, watching Greg, watching him play. And
yeah.
John come out periodically and check on him, or, hey man, you all right? Need something to drink? You sit down here and hang out with you. You're wanting it that bad. That's the thing. We wanted it that bad. We wanted to learn that bad. We wanted to be around music that bad and pick something up from those guys or, from anybody. I think that's always been a big thing, a big key factor in this band and our success is our drive, wanting it that bad. And, handling the business stuff, one kind of pep talk that, I always give myself, and it motivates me and it pisses me off at the same time, so that's why it's a great thing. I'll tell myself, so what? You just worked 12 or 15 hours today, and, you're tired and you don't feel like doing this or you don't feel like doing that. Well, guess what? Because you're not willing to send just one more email or to do this or do that, and then some other band out there that's up and coming, they're going to do it.
Right.
And they're going to be the ones that, get tour support for this band you want to be on the road with. They're the one that's going to get this, and they're going to get that. And I'm just like, damn it, all right.
Yeah.
Let me send that email. Let me get back to work. Let me keep grinding,
You're 100% right. I've been working for myself for 18 years, and I've done a lot of projects, and some of them have done well, some of them have failed. But it's in the beginning, man, it's just about getting enough momentum to kind of get the plane off the ground. But that's a lot of work to get that plane off, and it's a grind. It's nonstop, man. And you're 100% right. And you got to be willing to. I have this thing on my wall that says, "There's only 3 reasons you will not be successful." Because I'm 54 and I've been at this a long time, but I get the same discouraged.
Right.
There's only 3 reasons you'll not be successful. Number 1, you don't try new things. Number 2, you don't learn from what you try. Or number 3, and this is a tough one sometimes, you give up because you're like, shit, man, But you gotta want it. And you gotta say, okay, I might give up, but it ain't gonna be tonight. And let me get that email out. Let me send that contact out. Let me make that inquiry. Whatever you need to do. And you're right. That's what it's about.
Right.
And you can still do all those things, and it's not going to happen overnight. You still got to go through the grind. But people don't, I think, realize how tough it is. How much what you said is key.
One thing. Yeah, I think that's one thing, man, that really kind of puts that barrier there between the people who's going to grind and going to be successful and the ones that's not, is when you gave all you've got to give. When you gave your 110% and you're starting to feel defeated and you're feeling exhausted and you're wore out and you're tired, and finding that just a little bit more, giving a little bit more, pushing a little bit more, just grinding a little bit more. And, it seems like every time when I do that, I just give a little bit more. We try a little bit harder, spend a little bit more time writing this song, send one more email out, just listen to one more record or whatever it may be. Something good always comes out of it. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a vetting process. Success is a vetting process. And that's why there's so few people at the top, because not a lot of people are willing to get put through that process and have the drive to say, you know what, I'm beat, I'm whipped to shit, I don't care. I don't have the energy, but I have the mental fortitude to go ahead and do this next step, whatever that is, man. So,
right.
Good for you, man. I'm so happy you guys are now reaping in the very beginning stages, reaping the fruits of your labor.
We've been very blessed, man. That's definitely for sure. The Lord's been great to us, and we've been blessed, and having faith and putting hard work in. Eventually it starts paying off.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen. You could have all. Faith is not a business strategy. You could have all the faith you want. You got to, I always say hope is not a good business strategy. Faith, prayer, that's not good business strategy. You got to do the work.
Absolutely.
And then that other stuff will help you and make you feel good and make that connection with you spiritually. But if you're not doing the work, you could, have all the faith and prayer in the world. It's not going to happen. You got to do the work, man.
Right.
For sure.
Faith without works and hard work, man, it's dead. It's not.
100%. People sometimes don't realize that. Hey, let's talk about your record. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, man.
It's called Eyes of the Sun. It's available everywhere. When I saw the song "Turn to Stone," I'm like, oh, another cover of Joe Walsh. That's really, because a lot of people have covered that, but nope, it was nothing like that. It was like a really sweet blues, and it was kind of gospel like. And what's the backstory on that one?
Yeah, man, that's a really special, that's a really cool song. Our soul brother down around the Macon, Georgia area, I think he lives in Warner Robins, Eddie Stone, who played Hammond B3 on our record. We got to meet him by playing a lot in Macon, Georgia. And for those that don't know, Macon, Georgia, that is like the birthplace of, the Allman Brothers and Capitol Records, or not Capitol Records, Capricorn Records.
Yeah.
That, it signed a lot of those amazing Southern rock bands like Wet Willie and Marshall Tucker and Charlie Daniels. So we spent some time down there playing, became great friends with our brother Eddie Stone. And we were at some kind of event hanging out at the Big House, which is the Allman Brothers Band's museum. And John, our bass player, was talking to Eddie, hanging out. And somehow the story came up from Eddie, a very personal story from him about basically being in love with somebody that he couldn't have. And I guess maybe they missed their time to try to be with each other. And that person went on and married somebody else, I guess, and started a life. And Eddie went on and tried to start his life, I guess, and find love. And I guess the story is maybe missing out on someone you could have had, or maybe still possibly having feelings or love, or for somebody that you didn't get to try it with, or maybe kind of wondering what if, in a sense. Basically, I guess just wishing you could have maybe had something, or a relationship with somebody that you never had a chance to have. So that's kind of where that song come from. And Eddie Stone's his name, so Turn to Stone, that was the title of the song.
That's cool. And
it's just kind of his story, a personal story that he shared with us. And we wrote that about him. John came into practice one night. We didn't know any of this. This is a conversation John had with Eddie, and he came in and to practice one night and told us about this conversation he had with Eddie last time we were down in Macon. And John was fooling around with some chords on a guitar and a vocal melody, and we just kind of started working on it, and it turned out, really great. We're very proud of that song. Kind of hit you in the feels a little bit. Again, we try to write music that everybody can relate to and have some kind of personal connection to. And, I think that's one of those songs where I guess some people can relate to, about maybe being in love with somebody that they couldn't have. So
yeah, man, it's a beautiful song. All your stuff is, you mentioned that you try to put a positive message. Everything.
Absolutely.
The reason I like your music is because I feel it. When I listen to it, it feels good. And to me, that's my measure. It's like it's like sometimes you meet somebody. Perfect example, Greg. We talked about Greg. Greg's the kind of guy, you have a conversation with him. At the end of the conversation, you always have more energy. You feel better about life, yourself, everything. And that's how I listen to music. If I listen to something and it makes me feel better on the back end, and I enjoy it. And that's why I like your music. It makes me feel good. I feel a lot better afterwards. I got more energy afterwards than before. Well,
thank you, man. That's essentially what we're going for. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you succeed very well. Chasing the Sun. It's an awesome ballad, really very full sounding, great production on there. And I was curious, is there only 2 guitar tracks in that song?
Chasing the Sun, yeah. Just Boone and I playing guitar. And we got Brother Eddie Stone. He's playing Hammond B3 on that song as well.
What band was he in? I've never heard of Eddie Stone. What band was he in?
He was in original member of the band Doc Holliday.
Sure.
They were.
That takes you way back. Holy crap!
Yeah, they were a big Southern rock band in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I think like the first tour they ever did, they went on I don't know if it was a world tour or maybe Europe tour, opening up for Black Sabbath.
That's pretty cool.
Eddie still credits to this day that Black Sabbath tour is what's contributed to his hearing loss in one of his ears.
Not surprising.
Tony Iommi blasting. in his ear.
Tony can't hear either, so I tell him not to feel bad.
So there you go.
And then the last song, it's like "Let Your Love Shine Down." It's called. It's like my notes here. It's like the Beatles turned up to 11. It's got real pretty melody, cool chromatic progression. Step up between the chord changes. So even though the song really rocks out, it's very melodic. And I was curious. That was not. Doesn't sound like that was an easy song to write. It sounded like it took a lot of effort to figure that out, put all the changes in there, and put all the connections and those chromatic connections in there. What was involved in that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I think when that song come about, I was listening to a lot of gospel music, obviously. Beatles. I remember listening to a lot of Black Crowes, and a song "Soul Serenade."
Oh, by Carlos? By Santana?
No.
Well, a lot of people have done that song.
Not Carlos Santana. The Curtis
Mayfield?
I think it was Curtis Mayfield, the saxophone player guy. I'm drawing a blank. It's one of the jazz musicians, I think. I think it was Curtis Mayfield.
No, he was a guitar player, Curtis Mayfield.
No, God, I'm drawing a blank today. It wasn't Curtis Mayfield.
I know what you're talking about, man. Let's see if we could do a quick Google search so we can get our...
Yeah, this irks me because I know this stuff and I study
King Curtis.
Stuff,
King Curtis.
King Curtis.
Yeah,
it.
King Curtis. Yeah,
you study so much, man, just everything eventually kind of starts running in together, and you get musicians are some of the most scatterbrained people.
Well, no, you got a lot of
Earth.
stuff going through your head. Man, I wouldn't consider you scatterbrained in the least. I'm sitting here thinking, man, now that I'm really getting to talk to you, I'm just thinking, wow, this kid is, I knew you were smart and bright, but I'm like, wow, this, you've really done your homework, man. So I wouldn't, scatterbrained is not, all the words that come up in my mind to describe you. I wouldn't use scatterbrained as one of them, to be honest with you. So don't sell yourself short, man, at all.
Thanks, man.
King Curtis.
Yes, it was King Curtis, Soul Serenade. Listening to a lot of stuff like that and gospel music. And, just something started to inspire me and hit me kind of with this riff, the opening riff. And, I kind of felt like it was something special. I remember going over Boone's house one day and I was like, man, I kind of got this riff. I think it could be something very cool. You help me out with it, man. I'm kind of drawing blanks on some parts on it. So me and Boone kind of worked on it, kind of come up with a basic rundown. And, naturally, I guess, the two guitar players, they may write a majority of the melodies or, something like that. But it's very, very much a labor of love, and it takes all four of us.
So you all four, for the most part, on all the songs, you all four have writing credits?
All four of us, yeah. We all four have writing credits, and as far as we're concerned, that's the way it's always going to be. Because, who cares if the drummer or our drummer doesn't know how to play a G chord or an F chord on a guitar? That to us, that doesn't matter. His feel and his part, his groove, and the way he plays drums. If that's not there, then that may have not inspired us to play. A D sharp diminished or an A7 tier or whatever you want to whatever you want to do. So it does take all four of us. So we make we're always going to make sure that we're all four credited for that.
That says a lot about your relationship, and it says a lot about if you all have the same kind of work ethic, it also says a lot about your expectations of each other. Which I think is a really healthy, good thing. Yeah.
We've seen, studying bands, man, studying musicians and artists and bands over the years. We've seen so many iconic, great bands break up over stuff like that because they weren't equals or they couldn't be fair. Especially like the band, with Rob and Leon and stuff. That whole tension there with publishing and songwriting and everything.
Totally.
And it's just like, man, it's not worth it. If you guys are supposed to love each other and you're supposed to be in a band, why not be equals, So
well, at the same time, as long as everybody's stepping up, it's totally fair, And it sounds like you guys have that expectations out of each other, and you're giving it to each other, which is fantastic.
Right. and we always try to do a good job of encouraging, each other and pushing each other. But when we all four got in a room and Boone and I brought up this riff for "Let Your Love Shine Down," as always with writing a song, John and Andrew always got to credit them. They just help take things to a different level. And I think we've always heard with "Let Your Love Shine Down," hearing background vocals, gospel style background vocals, and having a B3 in it. So, we got Brother Eddie Stone playing Hammond B3 on that song too, "Let Your Love Shine Down." Sandra Dye and Bianca Bird, some local friends of ours here in town, they playing local and sing in local gospel groups. We had them come in and sing background vocals on it. And we're also very blessed, too, to have my good friend Danny Williams. He played mandolin, too, on our instrumental song on their Release at Sea. So, we had some good people behind us and involved and special guests. But, I was speaking with a friend of mine up in Canada who's can DJ have a radio show up there, my buddy Darren Flower, and he really loves that song, "Let Your Love Shine Down." And he said something to me that I've never thought about it this way, and I don't know if we have or if we will, and if it turns out to be this way, that'd be amazing. But he said, man, I really love your guys' song, "Let Your Love Shine Down." I think that song is going to be your guys' soul shine.
Could be, yeah. Very, you know what? It very well could be.
I was like, wow, that would be awesome if so. I've never thought about it that way. We just wanted to, again, just write positive, uplifting music, something with a good message people can relate to. And I remember one of the last times we played down in Macon, Georgia at the Koch Theater, somebody did a write-up over our set that we played, and they specifically singled that song out, "Let Your Love Shine Down." And they wrote a review over that of us playing it live. It was perfectly. It talked about, as we started playing "Let Your Love Shine Down" and the song went on, he said that, being in the audience, looking around, watching people, that you could just feel this overwhelming of love, of brotherhood and sisterhood just fall down over the whole crowd, and everybody just kind of locking arms around each other and singing along. And it's like they put everything that was going on in the world, they put everything to a side for a moment, and everybody, just come together being one underneath one roof. And that's essentially, what we strive to do, and what we want to be. We hope and pray that when somebody comes to an OTIS show, that, they can take something from that with them. And hopefully that, when they come to one of our shows, that they can put everything what's going on in the world, if they had a bad day at work, they're having financial problems, if they're having this problem here with that or whatnot, that, we can help them forget all that, at least for a couple minutes, and maybe kind of alter their way of thinking, and maybe come out feeling refreshed and feeling better. And that is a reason why, again, where we kind of get that from and where that stems from is our passion and our love in studying soul music, people like Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles. And that's why I think they've got so much of a bad rap in the beginning of their career, because people thought that they were taking gospel music and making it secular. And it wasn't that. They were brought up in gospel music. All four of us was brought up and raised in gospel music. So that gospel feel is there, and because that's their roots, that's in their DNA. And what I think that people like Aretha and Ray Charles hope for, and what we kind of hope for, is that hopefully, maybe they can take away from our show some kind of spiritual kind of experience, or some kind of spiritual feeling. And I always loved Leon Russell. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. I remember seeing a clip of him at a concert. He said, if you came here tonight and you don't walk away with a spiritual experience, he said, I want you to go back to the door and get your money, because I don't need it that bad.
That's awesome.
I love it, man. It's like, it's their pulpit. People like Aretha and Leon Russell and Ray Charles. There's so much more to music to them. It was about, a positive, uplifting message, reaching people, touching people. And I've always loved a quote I heard from Derek Trucks. He said, I'm not going to go see somebody just because they're good. He said, I want there to be some kind of experience there, some kind of emotional tie. I want to walk away feeling some kind of emotional experience. And that's what he strives for in his shows. We strive for that, as well in our shows, and a lot of other great bands that, we love and appreciate do as well. So.
Yeah, it's funny. As you were saying that, I saw Derek there's the St. Pete Blues Festival down here, and I went about two or 3 years ago with my son, and, Susan and Derek close out the night, and Derek played a version of Bob Dylan's song called Down in the Flood, and for the encore, and it was literally, I've seen hundreds of shows. That was the most spiritual. I've never had an experience like that. What he did with that guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I literally couldn't talk. I got my goosebumps here just thinking about it. And I walked out of there, and
Preach, brother.
And I've seen so many good guitar players, and I walked out of there with my son, and I said, you're never going to see anything like that the rest of your life. So I hope you really just took that encore in. You will not. That's a once in a life. I felt so. I mean, honestly, it was like like God was just said, "Okay, man, I'm going to give all you guys in the audience tonight." But honestly, man, it was just nuts. And
I know exactly what you're saying, man. It's oh my God, it's out of this world. And see, that's what's so inspiring to us, is that we want that too. You don't hear of a lot of bands that can do that in this day and age. The bands that can do what you're talking about, like what Derek Trucks done for you, that era's kind of came and gone, because those bands that could do that were like in the 60s and the 70s and whatnot, back in the day, many years ago. But first time I ever seen Derek Trucks was in 2013 in Nashville. And our drummer and I, me and Andrew, we went down. They were doing a co-headlining tour that summer with the Black Crowes. And it was a phenomenal show.
That's a hell of a show, Black Crowes and Derek. And
oh, man. When Derek Trucks walked out on stage, I can't even describe it. It was like some kind of musical god just appeared and showed up. It was like if it was the same feeling to me as if maybe like Jimi Hendrix or Dwayne Allman or somebody was to come back to life and walk back on stage and play. I don't know, man. When he walks on stage, or just being around him and seeing him live in person, he has some kind of vibe and some kind of presence to him that you can definitely tell. And
I think he's mastered the look. He started playing at 5, and he was around the best musicians in the world from that age, and all he did was play. So it would literally be impossible to come back and be Derek Trucks unless you. I mean, he's probably put more hours of woodshed than any other professional musician around that's his age today, because he just was at it, and he had those kinds of influences. And I've read articles, and very much the same as you guys, he's gone back and studied everything, and he's gone back and played everything. Gone back, he's played Indian music. I mean, he's just a very bright student of music.
Right, and he's probably, personally, and I know it's the same for our band, Derek Trucks is probably, my number one favorite influence right now out of modern players. Not just because his playing's only half of it. It's just his insight and his wisdom and his knowledge, the way he looks at things. He's from a different planet, man. Really.
No, he really is. He's
people like him and Jeff Beck and like that. Those guys are from a different planet. And Jack Pearson, it's just like it's out of this world. But I remember that show. That was the most important show I've ever attended in my whole life. Was in 2003 at that show.
3 or 13?
Or 2013. I'm sorry. that show in Nashville when they co-headlined with the Black Crowes. I can't remember what song it was, but I think it was Made Up Mind when he really started getting in and playing his solo. That's the only show I've ever been to in my entire life where I literally, and I'm not exaggerating at all, I literally cried.
No,
just
totally.
because of his playing, man. And I look around and I see everybody else, that's crying too, and it's just that powerful. And fast forward to about 2 years later in 2015, Tedeschi Trucks did a show at the Sky Pack Theater in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and our drummer and I went. And of course, I knew what to expect. I was ready for church that evening. I was ready for some kind of spiritual experience.
Totally.
It's like if you're going to a full gospel revival, Pentecostal revival in the South, tent revival. That's what it was like. Yeah. And it was so hilarious because I remember sitting around at the beginning of the show, waiting for the show to start, and I'm kind of looking at the crowd. You can tell who's the real fans, who knows who Tedeschi Trucks is, who knows who Derek Trucks is. And then you can see the ones that their buddy just had an extra ticket, and they just, gave them a ticket, and they're just trying to get out of the house for the evening. Probably don't even know who Derek Trucks is, never heard any of their music or anything. And I watched those people all night long. And this is what was so amazing and so inspiring to me. Watching those people that probably had no clue who Derek Trucks was or any of their music, for that matter, before they came to that show. And about 3 or 4 songs in, I look back around at some of those people, and they were crying.
They're converted.
They were moved to tears. And, God, it's amazing, man. He's unique. What they can do with their music. And I think that should be inspiring to, every musician or every band in general to be able to touch people like they do. But I think you can definitely start to tell Derek's influence musically on a lot of guitar players. So that's why for about the past year or two, I've tried to make it a point where I don't really listen to Derek a whole lot, very much, because I don't want to sound like him, in my playing or my side playing. I want to try to have my own voice, and I'm sure he would tell me to do the same thing. But I kind of got that approach from Derek. Derek, he was talking in an interview about how he got into this whole world music and jazz and stuff like that before he studied with like Ali Akbar, Kahan, and all that. Kofi and Kofi's brother, Otil, and I think Enrique Scott was really starting to turn Derek on to a lot of this different type of world music. And Derek said, if I'm not mistaken, for about a year or two, he did not try to play it or attempt to practice it at all. He just listened to it. And, after about a year or two, Derek started noticing that it started coming out in his playing. He didn't sit down and practice it at all. He just listened to it religiously. Yeah. And eventually it started coming out in his playing. And, starting out, I think jazz music was always something hard for me to kind of get into. And around that time, I was really digging deep into jazz music when I started to discover and get into Derek. So I tried that similar approach. And, before I joined OTIS, I was trying to do a lot of work in Nashville. And I read
like sessions or touring?
Just touring, gigs and stuff like that, getting work that way. I read somewhere that a lot of the hybrid pickers and chicken pickers were jazz guitarists, and that's how they got into it. But it was always a struggle for me to try to approach jazz with that mindset, with a country mindset. I had to approach it with a blues mindset. And everybody, the other guys in OTIS, they really helped me with that. Going back and studying music like the Allman Brothers. Allman Brothers is the number one key factor and the number one band that made jazz make sense to me. Taking it with more of a blues mindset instead of the other type of mindset. And, that's what I do with jazz and still do with jazz. I listen to it a lot, and I was listening to it a lot back then. And then it started to come out my playing. It started to make sense. I can understand it. I could find the groove, I could find the downbeat, and I think that's something very important that I picked up and learned from Derek, and that every musician, I think, can apply that to themselves is, if you're trying to get into a new style or a new genre of music, don't necessarily maybe try, practicing it right off the bat. Just listen to it and listen to it for a while, and then eventually, when you marry yourself to that, whatever you're trying to get into, if it's world music or jazz or country music or what have you, it starts to make sense because you've listened to it for so much, and you'll eventually start seeing it coming out through your playing. And then when you sit down and you try to approach that and practice it, then it makes it a whole lot easier. And that's, again, it just kind of goes back to training your ear, and that's what's worked for me.
Man, I think that's really good wisdom. Let me ask you, one thing I keep thinking about, just wanted to mention, there's a section in the Allman Brothers at the Fillmore East where Dwayne mentions King Curtis, and he goes something like, and I remember it because I don't know if he was stoned or whatever, but he goes, this is an old King Curtis tune, and whatever it is, it was, and it was whatever it is, and it was like, what? And I've heard that so many times, and every time I listen to it, I get a laugh. I'm like, man, he had to have a buzz on saying that, because that only had to make sense to him. But he mentions King Curtis. But what would you? Because I just found this guy named Grant Green, who's a blues, kind of like a crossover blues jazz guy, older guy. He's dead now, but he's passed. But who would you suggest? Because I've always wanted to start enjoying jazz, and I've always struggled with it. What's a good, what would you suggest as a good starting point, as a good crossover to get into it? I mean, I like Dave Brubeck. I listen to his stuff. Some Stan Getz I listen to, but what would you recommend?
I highly recommend, one of my all-time favorite jazz albums is Miles Davis's Kind of Blue album. I got turned on to that by just reading and studying up on Duane Allman, and that was one album that, he was very influenced by and really into. Miles Davis is great. Big John Coltrane fan.
Yeah, his Love Supreme.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoy.
That's a great one. Thelonious Monk. I really like Thelonious Monk. That's really great stuff.
Any album in particular that you can think of? Monk was a keyboard player, correct? Or was he a bass player?
I think Monk was a keyboard player, I think. I got Dave Brubeck, Take Five. That's a great record.
Yeah, I like that. That's really
good. Trying to think what else I got in my stash. I got an old Preservation Hall record. It was like a jazz band out of New Orleans. It was really cool stuff, Preservation Hall. And I love drummers too, jazz drummers. I really love Elvin Jones, and I love Max Roach. A lot of those guys.
Have you heard Art Blakey?
Yeah, I have.
Good drummer. His great stuff. All right, I'm just going to have to go revisit these, man, and just with a little more focus, because I really would like to start getting. And I think that's really smart advice. That let something become a part of you, and then you don't have to struggle to play it. Then it comes out naturally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, man.
That's what all the greats done. That's kind of what I discovered what Duane Allman done. And all those great guys done, and B.B. King and stuff.
Now I know the album's doing really well. And you guys talk about the tour you're getting ready to go on soon.
Yeah, man. Our European tour, we're getting ready to start on our spring tour, of course. We kick off with a couple of U.S. dates next month in February, doing our home kickoff tour show here locally in town at Rib Liquors on February the 3rd. Then we got John Brown's on the Square in Marion, Illinois. We're going to Evansville, Moscow's Bar and Grill, and we're playing up in Connecticut at the Factory Underground. Our European tour starts March 2nd in London, and I think it goes all the way to about March 14th, I believe, with our last show in Austria. And we come back.
That's got to be exciting.
Oh, man. To us, the way we look at it, it's like an extreme privilege and an extreme honor to be asked and have the opportunity to go over and tour Europe, because that's something that's been so cool for us to see over the years is our buddies in Blackstone Cherry, for them to go over there and play Europe so much and be so very well conceived over there. And just the whole press over there, the magazine companies, the radio, just everybody over there. I mean, man, it's like when they hear about a band that they like, they really latch on to them and they stay behind them, and they really kind of help push them and play a big key factor in their career. And that's been really great. I remember growing up, one of the coolest magazines to me that, I read was Classic Rock magazine that's based over there in Europe. And our manager hits me up a couple of days ago, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, Classic Rock magazine is presenting your guys' European tour."
That is so like, cool, oh, man. That's like a childhood dream come true, I bet, for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Is this real? So, God, that's so cool, man. We're so very thankful and grateful for that. We hope we don't let anybody down.
No, man. Let's talk gear for a few minutes. You're primarily a Gibson humbucker guy, correct?
Absolutely. I got a 58 reissue Les Paul that I love. Of course, a dream guitar, I guess, for me would be like a real 58 or 59. But Gibson Custom Shop, man, I think they're killing it with their custom shop stuff. It's some really great gear. I know if you get a Gibson Custom Shop from like 2011 till now, they're really, really accurate to the old vintage stuff.
Let me ask you something. Is the 50, is that with the, how's the neck on that? Is it a bigger, thick neck?
Yeah, see, that's what's interesting is Greg Martin, of course, he's got a real 58.
Oh, yeah.
He told me, to his knowledge, he doesn't know of Gibson ever making a 58 Les Paul with a baseball neck. But mine has a baseball neck. And I remember...
you have big hands? You a big guy?
Yeah, I kind of have more big, thicker hands. So I love it. It works well for me. And I love the tone and sustain I'm able to get out of a baseball neck. And I remember this thing we went to, Sky Live recording thing that we went to in Nashville that had Robert Randolph there and Billy Gibbons and Charlie Starr. There was some people from Gibson there that had some of Billy's signature guitars they were showing people. And I talked to one of the A&R reps. I was telling him about my Les Paul. And, and I told him, I said, to my knowledge, I've never heard of there ever being a baseball neck on a real 58 Les Paul. And he said, well, when was it made? I said, mine was made in 2006. He said, well, around 2006, they were, I think, kind of experimenting a little bit with different neck profiles and stuff of that nature. So I was like, well, I don't really know if other people like it, but, I love mine. I love the baseball neck on it. Works well for me. And it's got Lindy Fralin PAF pickups in it.
That's magic.
And turn it around like the old Peter Green.
Peter Green. Yeah. What other... sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I think to actually do the accurate real Peter Green mod is you have to take the magnet out and flip it around. But so I just got the whole pickup just kind of turned around, so it kind of throws out of phase, I guess. And you get that sound, which is really cool, and I really love the neck sound I get out of it.
There's a company out of England called Ox 4. I don't know if you heard of them. And he makes, which supposedly an authentic Peter Green set of pickups. They're pricey, but everybody I know a couple of guys in Nashville that have them, pro players, and they love them. It's called Ox 4, out of England. So what you have? What's your number 2 and number 3 guitar?
My number 2 right now is probably this 1975 Telecaster I got. It's a blind Telecaster. It belongs to Boone, but he's been gracious enough just to kind of let me have it and take it over. I got a couple of guitars. Boone, he's got more guitars than me, so I always joke around and say I got the Boone Froggatt endorsement. So I was like, man, give me a guitar. You ain't playing it. I want to jam on it for a while.
that's a contrast. You know, you got a 58 reissue and then a Telly. Those are pretty opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Oh man, I love the Telecaster. You know, it's a real 1975, and I use it mainly for open G tuning. I float back and forth. At first, I didn't like regular open G tuning because I didn't like the top string down to D. Can kind of throw me off a little bit. So I would use a dobro open G tuning. It's just G B D G B D, and that's the tuning that I'm using on the title track, Eyes of the Sun, on our new record. And I always kind of wondered, I always kind of felt maybe that was the same situation for Keith Richards. I kind of think maybe Keith kind of didn't like that top string or whatever, tuned down to D. So I wonder if he's ever tried that dobro tuning GBD, because he may have liked that too, it's Keith Richards. I'm sure he's probably tried everything.
Yeah.
He's got, you know, what works for him. But, you know, over the years, I went back and revisited regular open G tuning, and I really like it now, and I've got a better appreciation for it. So I tend to float back and forth with the dobro tuning of G and the open G.
For slide, that's for slide you're talking.
Yeah, it needs a fret job on it really bad. So I can't really.
Which one, the Telly?
Standard. So I just kind of got it tuned for open for slide, and it works well because one of my all-time favorite slide guitarists that played a Telecaster was Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
So I always really liked that, and I'd probably say my third guitar right now is it's the late '90s. I think it's the late '90s, early 2000s Black Stratocaster that my dad gave me. That
nice.
I really like, and it came with a Roland GR33 synth pedal. But you know, I like effects; they're great for different textures and stuff. But I don't use them any effects live or anything. Ben and I both just plug straight into an amp, and so I don't really use that side of it. But it's a great guitar.
Well, plus it was your dad's, man. That's got to be so cool playing your dad's guitar.
Oh yeah,
that's the whole thing of that. Forget the Roland, man. It's your dad's guitar.
Yeah.
That's the magnet there, man.
Absolutely. I think this is the third one he's gave me. And Dad, he's always been kind of more of a Strat guy, but a couple of years ago, he ended up getting him a Telecaster with 3 pickups in it, and he really loves it. And I remember when I graduated high school, I took some money that I saved up and from working a summer job that summer when I graduated, and some money I got, from graduating high school as well. I put all that together, and I remember buying my first Les Paul. It was a Les Paul copy. And a couple years fast forward down the road, I got the Les Paul that I got now. And I love my dad to death, man. He's always been such a great influence on me. And Dad comes from the same school as a lot of people around here. A lot of people around here, or just in general, may not have the money to buy the more higher-end Gibson or Fender stuff or whatever. So they just kind of get whatever's affordable and convenient at the time and make that work.
Sure. And
I remember hearing Dad, I think, say that he always kind of maybe wanted a Les Paul and would like, to try it out. So the first Les Paul I was ever
the copy
paid my money for, the Les Paul copy. I gave it to my dad when I bought the Les
That's
Paul.
so cool, man. And he's probably not going to let that guitar go ever. Same reason he'll never let that Strat go. That's really nice, man.
Right.
Hey, and tell Boone if he's going to loan you a guitar, at least get it fretted for you.
Yeah. I guess in his defense, and this kind of makes me nervous too, traveling with this guitar. This Telecaster was his grandpa's.
Oh,
and,
wow.
His grandpa owned a Jamboree back in the 70s. There was a really cool Jamboree, man. It had a lot of great people that actually came through during that time, like Steve Warner, I think, played at his grandpa's Jamboree. Sam Bush.
Oh, wow.
A couple other big names. So his family's, very well established in the music industry or the music field around here as well. His grandpa was a big fiddle player, won a couple of championships from my understanding.
That's cool.
But his grandpa had this Telecaster, and he passed it down to Boone's dad. And Boone's dad, of course, passed it down to Boone. and then so it's like an heirloom, and he's let me play it.
Oh, wow.
So I try to take extra caution and be very careful, when taking it out, when playing it, because why he would let me borrow, an heirloom like that to play, I don't know why, but he's my brother. And
you guys
thank God
are brothers,
for it.
man.
Yeah. I love that guitar. It's a very special guitar.
Sam Bush, he was in Newgrass Revival, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's in Newgrass Revival, man. Another band, from our area around the Glasgow area, Newgrass Revival. Of course, the Headhunters and Blackstone Cherry. We live in a really great place, man, musically. You drive 30 minutes south down the road to a town called Bowling Green, Kentucky, and that's where the band Cage the Elephant's from.
Oh,
and they just won their first Grammy this past year for alternative rock, I think. But so many people from this area or that's came out of this area. Another good friend of ours, Byron House from Bowling Green, he's a bass player, and he's played bass for Robert Plant and his band, Band of Joy, for years. Dwight Yoakam, I think, is a Kentucky guy. Chris Stapleton's a Kentucky guy. Who else? Sturgill Simpson? He's another hot name, right now, big in the music industry. He's from Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. So many people, musicians and bands and artists from Kentucky, and it's very awesome, to see all these people coming from Kentucky, and to also, I guess, to be another band, coming from Kentucky, it's kind of like,
yeah, man.
What do you guys, what can you guys do? So,
well, you'll be showing them pretty soon, man.
Yeah. Hopefully we can do our part.
I interviewed the other day Pat Flynn, who played with Newgrass Revival for about 10 years. And you listen to that guy play acoustic guitar, it's like, I couldn't even, I'm just like speechless watching him play, man. Those guys really had something unique,
Yeah.
Tell me something about yourself, Steve, people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
I really love to cook, man. I love to cook.
You sent me some pictures last week.
Yeah.
I will vouch for that, man. It looked good, too, to tell you the truth.
But it's funny. I've been kind of battling a little bit, all this allergy stuff going on. And Caitlin, my girlfriend, texted me, and she's like, hey, let's cook steaks tonight. We'll do steaks and baked potato and salads and stuff. And we went over her mother's house and cooked them over there, and they began to cook the steaks, and they were both kind of like, we don't really know how to cook steaks. Would you mind doing it?
They look good,
I was
man.
like, absolutely, I'd love to. A lot of people like to, when it comes to cooking steaks, some people like to grill them, which grilling, is fine too, but probably one of my favorite and preferred methods of cooking steaks is in a cast iron skillet, right on the stove.
Yep,
so I love cast iron stuff, cooking with cast iron.
Awesome.
But I love to cook, man. I love to eat and I love to cook. I love to grill out.
Yeah, I grill a lot. Who's the most important person in your life?
That's a hard one, man. I wouldn't say I have one most important person. I have many important people. Over the years, definitely my parents, my grandfather. He taught me so much. Taught me how to work, and how to work for things and earn it, based upon your hard work and getting out there and grinding. My father as well, one of the best things and best advice he's ever gave me. My father, he said, if you get out and he said you work for something and earn it that way, he said you'll appreciate things a whole lot more. And that's always, really stuck with me. And here more recently, for about the past 5 years, my beautiful girlfriend Caitlin, she's definitely been my biggest supporter and been my rock. With everything going on with our band, us entering in the next level, quitting day jobs and going and touring the world, going to Europe and starting our U.S. tour to California. I mean, hell, man, we've never even been to New York. We're flying out from New York to go to London. Just going to New York, is a treat enough itself.
I was thinking that when you told me you were flying out of New York. I was like, I wonder if you've ever been there, man. Well, when you go, make sure you call me. I'll tell you some places to go and have fun without spending $100 for breakfast.
Yeah, I'll do that. But she's been there the whole time, man, encouraging me, uh, handling a lot of the business that I do. There's a lot of times where it gets very overwhelming, and of course, anybody, I'm sure, kind of has, doubt, self-doubt. Am I working hard enough? Am I hurting things, or am I helping things? Am I doing this wrong? You kind of, it's natural, I guess, to kind of doubt yourself a little bit, but
100%.
She's always been there, encouraging me and uplifting me. And about 2 years ago, she decided that she wanted to go to school to be a respiratory therapist. And my God, watching this woman, because she is most definitely a woman, watching this woman work hard, with school and concentrating on her dream of being a respiratory therapist has influenced me tenfold, to grind even harder. So, and she's 25 and I'm 26. And what our relationship pretty much consists of almost every night is her sitting on the couch doing homework, studying for tests, and, me on my phone or laptop sending out emails, doing business stuff.
Sure.
And that's pretty much what it consists of. Bless her heart, I don't know how she does it. She's one of those where if she has a test, she will stay up the whole night the day before the test and study, won't sleep at all, drink some coffee, go in and ace her test. And she's making straight A's. If she misses any more than like 2 questions on her test, she like freaks out, thinks it's like the end of the world. She's very much, she's kind of a, perfectionist a little bit, which I guess I kind of am too. But just seeing her dedication and seeing her work so hard for something that she wants to do, and in her life and her dreams and her goals has also been very inspirational to me as well. So, and again, she's been a very important person in my life for about the past 5 years, inspiring me and lifting each other up, because I think that's definitely what it takes in a relationship or in a marriage. You got to lift each other up. You got to be each other's biggest fans and support each other. And just like, how it is in our band, we're like that in our band as well. We try to encourage each other, lift each other up, support each other, be each other's biggest fans. But, I'm very blessed with my girlfriend, Caitlin, having her in my life. I've definitely lucked out. She could probably definitely do better.
Well, I tell you, when I see you pictures of you guys look like you're always having fun. You could just, sometimes you could look at a couple and you could see this is bullshit. Like, the couples who put, oh, I'm so in love with my blah, blah. It's
right.
Like, man, save that shit. Yeah. But, I always see pictures. You just look like really happy and having fun. And I think that's like, not that I'm certainly an expert, but it's if you're not happy having fun, I mean, it doesn't matter. Nothing's going anywhere, man. That's what it's about, You're
right.
Well, that's cool.
Especially being, young, both of us being a young couple, because, we don't come from a background where neither one of our families has a lot of money. Both of our families are very much the type of families where, they have to work for a living and somewhat, live paycheck to paycheck, but they try and do their best. And that's always taught me and her both, I think, how to have a good work ethic. And that's something that, I think that we both have done well in being as young as we are, is having a good work ethic. So, when you can have a stay-at-home dinner date, in your mid-20s, eating ramen noodles, or microwave burritos, and love each other through that, I think things will be okay. Because I tell her all the time, that one of these days for putting up with me and being there by my side, bless her heart, she deserves her own holiday and her own private island one day.
Well, you'll give it to her, man. You got plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
For sure. And you know what, man? I'm with my wife 25 years. You know what my favorite thing to do is stay home and have a dinner date. I swear to God. Just because we like talking to each other. And nothing like bringing some food in or cooking some food, having a drink and just chilling out. It's like I'm in heaven. So I'm happy for you, man. It's good. Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music? if you have any time for that, besides cooking?
Yeah, I love cooking, and big football fan. I love sports. Grew up playing sports, right when I was in school. Football is probably my favorite sport of choice that I love to follow. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to say it anyways because I've got a lot of pride in this team.
I know where you're going.
That's okay. I'm a big New England Patriots fan.
Yeah, that's a shocker. I knew you were going there, though.
Yeah. I have to say this. I always have to pull out my membership card, my fan card, when I tell people this. Is when I was a kid growing up, playing like Little League football, I was a huge Drew Bledsoe fan. And, I always wanted to be Drew Bledsoe, when I was growing up as a kid playing football. So that's what got me into the New England Patriots. And, that was my first jersey, was a Drew Bledsoe jersey. And he was at the height of his career, man. He was having such a great season. Then he got hurt. And, I know all of us, the fans, we greatly hated that. Hated to see him get hurt. But, I remember Tom Brady's first game. I remember when he came in and started playing, a lot of us thought, like, I don't know about this kid, man. He's not real fast, and he's decent at throwing the ball. I don't know how it's going to work out, and we love Drew Bledsoe. He's having a great season, so maybe he'll come back in a couple of games. But boy, was we wrong.
It worked out okay.
Yeah.
It
worked out pretty good with Tom Brady.
Do you get a lot of shit for having a Yankee, being a fan of a Yankee football team down in Kentucky?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine.
A lot of people around here, man, they're a lot of Tennessee Titan fans, a lot of Colts fans, and a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans.
Yeah.
Our guitar tech, Cody, he is a big Denver Broncos fan, and our merchandise manager, merch guy, Jason, he is a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. So me and him, we're kind of going back and forth, smack talking right now, because it could very likely, depending on the outcome tomorrow, could be the Eagles again against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Well, cool, man.
So we'll see what happens.
I got two more questions for you, and I'm going to let you go, man. I really appreciate your time. This has been great. This is like literally a seminar for anybody that wants to. No, man, this has been great stuff. You have a lot to look forward to in the future. I mean, just a ton. Anything specifically that you're looking forward to, either musically, professionally, or personally?
You know what? Personally, I'm very, very much looking forward to one day, Caitlin and I getting married, starting our family and our life together in marriage. I have so much going on, as you can imagine, right now with the band, and she's trying to get through school and get her job started with that we're kind of waiting when both of our careers kind of get a little bit more settled in and established. Then we'll kind of make that move.
That's unusual. A millennial who wants to get married. You're like the first guy I know.
Yeah.
That's odd for this generation. You don't hear that a lot.
Yeah, we're definitely not in any rush. We love each other and we live together, and it's pretty much kind of like we're already married in a sense. But things have been great. We got a fur baby. We don't have any children, but we do have a fur baby, Blaze. Bless her heart, in playoff times and sometimes for games, I got to dress her up in some Patriots gear. I put a little Patriots shirt on her and a hat. And that dog, man, gets treated a hell of a lot better than I do. I think it owns more clothes than I've got. It's like, oh my God, Thanksgiving, Caitlin was upset because she bought this damn dog a turkey outfit to wear on Thanksgiving. And it didn't get here in time. It didn't get here to probably like 3 or 4 days after Thanksgiving, and then she got it, and then it didn't fit right, so she was upset about that. And I was like, really, man? Really, dude? A turkey outfit? This damn dog needs a turkey outfit? It's got a couple of Christmas sweaters and like 2 or 3 elf outfits and costumes she puts on it for Christmas and stuff like that. But, gosh, and, one of our favorite things to do in the summertime, when we both have time, we'll take Blaze out, to a park or something like that, or to the beach or whatnot, and feed her some ice cream. She's a good girl. We treat her to ice cream, and I love it. We try to feed her ice cream, and she'll be sitting in the back seat, and she just goes crazy and gets it all over the side of my face.
Nice.
All over the side of Kingman's face. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool.
It's our baby. We love her.
Last question, man. What has been the biggest change in your personality over the last 5 years? And has that change been deliberate or just naturally evolved?
I would say, in my personality, I think I've grown more confident. That, hey, I can do this. Our band can do this. We can do this. This is not unachievable. This is not unreachable, because growing up as a kid, man, I was huge. Aside from my dad was the number one biggest inspiration to really influence me. But aside from him, Billy Gibbons and Warren Haynes were two big guitar players that had a huge impact on me. Growing up listening to ZZ Top records and having posters of those guys on my wall, and fast forward a couple of years, we put out our first record, and we get a text from Greg, and he's like, "Oh, look, Billy Gibbons has got a copy of your CD. He loves it. Here's a quote that he said," and it's so surreal. I don't know if it's kind of really ever synced in. That, we got a record deal. Our album's out, on a record label. I don't think it's hit us yet, that we're going to Europe, that all this is really happening, because anytime, like, something like that happens, like when we got our record deal, it was like, great, okay, what's next? What do we need to get to work on next?
Yeah.
We always try to stay focused, and we always try to constantly keep working and keep grinding. But, all of this, I think, has made us very confident in myself. It's kind of, as I'm getting older, and this happens naturally, it's kind of shifting over from being full of piss and vinegar to being full of confidence and wisdom. Because I remember, man, when I first joined the band, God, this is a funny story. As a lot of musicians and people know, William Morris is probably one of the biggest booking agencies in the whole world. And I wasn't in the band for just a couple months. Boone and I went to Nashville, and we seen a band play. God, I'm drawing a blank. Who was it? Sings that song "Blue on Black." I think Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Okay.
We went and seen Kenny Wayne Shepherd play in Nashville, and I remember after the show, I was like, "Yeah, I think we could open up for them. Yeah, let me find out who his people is." So I remember on lunch break, Boone and I are eating lunch, and I'm on my phone doing some research, and I found out what booking agency he was on. I had no clue about booking agencies. I had no clue about any of this. All I knew was I thought that we could open up for him. I thought we were good enough to open up for him. So I was like, the hell with it. And I thought I was pretty slick about it. Seeing that he was on William Morris, so I got William Morris's phone number. And when I called, I knew right off the bat I had enough sense to say, to not tell them, like, hey, I'm in a band. Can my band open up for Kenny Wayne Shepherd? Because I knew that would come off completely green. So when I called, I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but I worded it in a way when I called whoever I spoke to at William Morris that they didn't know if I was an A&R from a record label. They didn't know if I was management. They didn't know, if I was just some kid from Kentucky in a band, or they didn't know who I was.
Right. So they
I worded it in a very, very good way, and I ended up working my way up until I come to my third person that I talked to, and it's like, bam, he just kind of shut me down right off the bat. Like, hey, look, kid, we can't just be talking to everybody, that calls in, wanting to open up for the Foo Fighters or Kenny Wayne or Earl Smith or whoever. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't think nothing about it. We hung out with Greg a couple of days later, and I told him what I'd done, and Greg's like, you called who? I was like, yeah, I don't know, some company named William Morris. I ain't got a damn clue. They were like, kind of like, oh, yeah, we're one of the biggest booking agencies in the world. And I was like, okay. And Greg was like, because they are one of the biggest booking agencies in the world. And I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah, but
I didn't have a clue.
But I give you credit, man.
Yeah.
You know what, man? It doesn't matter where somebody is. Just go for it, because they may say yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. You never know. And that's one thing, as far as overseeing the business for our band, one thing that I've never been afraid of is approaching people and taking chances and taking phone calls and calling people, because, you never know what may happen. And that's, of course, you learn, you live and you learn. You mess up, you fall on your feet, and you learn from that, and you become a better person and better in your career because of that. So that's helped me drastically as well, and all of us in the band. But one thing else too, I wanted to add, talking about something I'm looking forward to either in my career or personally. I'm really looking forward to getting to a point where maybe some of this workload business-wise kind of gets taken a little bit off my plate. I'm really, really looking forward to getting back and really studying my craft, my playing, and trying to be the best guitarist and the best version of me that I can be. That's honestly one of my favorite things to do. That's why I got into music, was because I love listening to music. I love studying music. I love reading books and biographies about musicians or bands or what have you, and just trying to become a better guitarist, trying to be the best I can. So hopefully we'll have more time for that, coming up.
I'm sure you will, and I'm looking forward to when William Morris calls you and you say, man, we're too busy. Do you know who we are? We don't just take phone calls from anybody. I would like to hear that story.
You never know, man. And one of the biggest things that actually, this kind of goes back to something that may be kind of odd that people may not expect about me is one of my most favorite things that I like to do when I'm doing band business stuff. It kind of helps inspire me and motivates me at the same time. Is I love watching that new TV show out called Shark Tank.
Oh yeah,
that helps me out, a whole lot. And business is business. It doesn't matter if it's the music business or catering business or restaurant business or whatever. The way how a business, the inner workings of a business is essentially the same. You got to make money, you got profits, you got loss, you got gross, you got net, that type of stuff. And I've learned a lot of great things off, watching that TV show Shark Tank about inner business working. So it's been really great for me. It's really helped me out. Stole a couple good ideas and business wise from that TV show. But it's like, what the hell, man? What 26-year-old kid just sits around watches Shark Tank and
But that's why you're in this position you're in. That's why you're about to do a world tour, a European tour followed by a U.S. tour at 26. That's why Billy Gibbons said, "Hey, man, I like your shit." It's because of all these little things. People think, I've consulted literally I've worked with 300 clients. I've had probably 500 consulting phone calls in the last 18 years, maybe more. And people often think there's one secret. And once in a blue moon, that one thing that they did is going to change things. But it's not usually like that. It's like a million little things that you did that combine to get you to that next place. So you're just doing everything right.
I'm trying. We're all of us are trying our best to. That's definitely for sure. It's a labor of love. I definitely couldn't do it without the support and guidance. From my bandmates and their confidence. We all have our roles aside from our instruments. That we do inner workings for the band, and it's just, I don't know. I guess it's just something I've never been necessarily afraid of, is uncomfortable things that you may have to come across and talk about business-wise, confrontational type stuff, whether it's money or what have you, negotiating type things. And I know that can be uncomfortable for some people. Say you're calling up a venue and you're booking a gig, and negotiating money, like how much to pay the band, one thing that's always helped me is being able, and again, I think this is some of the best, greatest advice I could ever give to anybody that's an upcoming band, is learn how to separate your feelings if you're conducting
business. You got to detach. Yeah, you got to just
exactly, because
it's not an emotional process.
Whenever you call up a venue or say, hey, I see that Government Mule is playing in town, and I want to see if my band can open up for them. And of course, rejection always sucks when they tell you no or whatnot. But I think one thing I do take pride in myself and all four of us in our band OTIS is that when it comes down to the business of this, we've been able to do a very good job of separating our feelings and not letting rejection beat us up. We don't really take things as rejection. We try to take things as constructive criticism. And I think that's what's really helped us the most is, well, okay, I can't play this gig. Well, why can't I play this gig? Well, do you have a following in this area? Well, no. Well, how do you get a following in this area? And then, just picking up on things, studying, reading things, well, this is what you have to do. You got to make records. You got to get out and play. You got to open up for bands. You got to get in front of people. You got to do this. You got to play the small gigs before you can play the Beacon Theater or the Ryman, So, and we've never been afraid to get out and grind and get out and work. And we've been very blessed, over the years. Again, because of our buddies Blackstone Cherry and the Headhunters, all their great guidance and wisdom. Our good buddy David Barrett, who we met through Greg, he's really helped us over the past couple of years in the studio. He's the co-producer of our album Eyes of the Sun, and we've been working with him for the past couple of years. He's really helped us and helped develop the band that we are now when it comes into a studio sense. Just the physics involved about mic placements, how to record, how to pull different things out of us, when we're recording, just everything that goes into making a record. David's really helped us the past couple of years along with that. But it's been great, man. The past 6 years. If you was to tell us 6 years ago that we'd have a new album out on a record label, getting ready to go on a European tour followed by a U.S. tour, it would we'd probably laughed at you like yeah right, man. That's what we've always wanted. Maybe we wouldn't have laughed because we've always known that this is what we wanted to do. And we've always, all four of us has always known that we were going to do this. We just didn't know when or know how. All we've known for the past 6 years in our whole life is that you just got to keep working. You got to keep grinding, stay positive and stay focused. And, eventually you'll get there. It'll happen.
Well, it's happening, man, and I want to wish you congratulations and thank you for all your time, man. I know you're not feeling good today, especially, so I really appreciate it. One thing you said about rejection, you got to look at it. You're in sales now, and you're going to get rejected 9 out of 10 times, or maybe 19 out of 20 times. It's just next, and that's just the way you got to look at it, man.
Yeah, and that's how it is for everybody. I remember
in any sales position. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Because that's how Led Zeppelin got their name. Somebody said they were going to go over like a lead balloon.
That's right. Right. That's right.
I remember reading the Allman Brothers getting rejected by record labels when they were first showcasing in New York and stuff like that. It's just part of it. Any band that's a legacy band. I hope I don't sound big-headed or I hope I'm not being too bold by saying this, but I think that's something we want to strive to be as a legacy band. And we want to write timeless music. I'm pretty sure that a couple 50 years or so from now, when I'm at my granddaughter's wedding, I'm pretty sure they'll probably still be playing Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman, or Otis Redding, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. So that's something that's always been very important to us is to try to write timeless music music with. And you do that, I think, by writing music that's got feeling, that's got passion to it. And we've never tried to really chase any kind of current trend or the flavor of the month or whatever. But, that's been very special to see. And I hope that, years from now, that's what kind of band we develop into and become as a legacy band, one that's going to be around for a while, and a band that can continue to write timeless music and music that people can relate to and connect with.
I don't see any reason why not. And look, man, you got to aim high, because even if you miss, you come a little lower. But if you're aiming low in the first place and you miss that, where are you going to be,
Right. Absolutely.
Well, man, let me tell people how to find you. Again, it's with Steve Jewell, Jewell, and he is one of the guitar players in OTIS. The new album, it's amazing. Eyes of the Sun, it's available everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, your favorite place that you buy stuff online. The website is The OTIS Band, and OTIS is OTIS, so it's theotisband.com. You can find them on Instagram and Twitter at Otis Band, On Facebook, they're at Otis Heavy Blues. All right, that's Facebook, Otis Heavy Blues. Eyes of the Sun is a new record, theotisband.com. Check them out. They're getting ready to do a European tour and a U.S. tour, followed by a European tour, followed up by a U.S. tour that'll start in spring, and I'd imagine go through the end of the summer, Steve, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're not feeling well, so
thanks, man.
Thanks very much, man.
I'm kind of getting towards the end of it, and this whole allergy stuff, starting to feel some better. But thank you, man, for having me. This has been awesome.
Cool.
And thank the listeners for tuning in and supporting guys like you and supporting bands like us. So it's a labor of love. We all got to stick together.
Absolutely. On that note, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Steve Jewell, and congratulations for all the success they're having, and support them when you see Otis on tour, and support their music. Thanks for spending time with us, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Go to everyone. Oh, you're welcome, man. My pleasure. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some cool stuff we have. Be nice. Go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, peace and love. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.